Rain poured down over the broken alien city, tapping against metal scraps and glass like a slow, cruel rhythm. What was once a shining world had become nothing more than ruins, empty homes, cracked towers, and endless silence. In one corner of this dying place stood a small hut made of rusted steel plates and bent wires. Inside it, two alien sisters sat close together, trying to stay warm. The older one, Lyra, wrapped her thin arms around her little sister, Miri. Both had skin the color of pale violet, but hunger had drained it to gray. Their bellies growled softly in the cold. The wind slipped through the holes in the roof, and each drop that fell made Miri flinch. "I'm hungry, Lyra," the small girl whispered weakly, her voice cracking. Lyra looked away. She didn't want her sister to see her tears. "I know," she said softly. "I'll find something soon." There was nothing left inside the hut except two cracked bowls, a broken lantern, and a blanket so thin it was almost useless. Miri's small hands were trembling as she tried to hold the blanket tighter. Outside, loud engines roared across the streets. Human patrol drones floated above the ruins. Their red scanning lights swept over everything, searching for any alien who dared steal food from the military rations depot. A metallic voice echoed from one of the drones. "Unauthorized movement will be punished by termination." Lyra closed her eyes. She knew what those words meant. Death without mercy. Humans didn't trust the aliens anymore. Not after the war that ended 5 years ago. The humans had won, and the aliens had lost everything. Their homes, their jobs, their pride, their rights to even live freely. Lyra's father had once worked in the city's crystal mines. He had been taken away by soldiers and never returned. Her mother had died soon after, sick and starved. That left only Lyra and Miri alone and forgotten. Miri's stomach made a small sound again, a deep growl that made her clutch her belly. Lyra bit her lip until she tasted blood. She couldn't bear to see her sister suffer. "I'll go out tonight," she whispered almost to herself. "I'll bring something back." She rose from the cold floor, her bones aching under her thin skin. She stepped to the door and pushed it open. The wind hit her face like a slap. Outside, the air smelled of metal, smoke, and rain. The streets were empty except for the burned cars and fallen streetlights. Every few minutes, the bright light of a human drone passed overhead. Lyra hid behind walls, waiting until it was gone before moving again. Her bare feet splashed through puddles of dirty water. She reached the old market area, once full of laughter, now filled with silence. All the stalls were empty except one, guarded by two human soldiers wearing heavy armor. Behind them was a small poster glowing faintly in the dark. Lyra stopped and stared at it. The words were written in human language, but she had learned enough to understand. Work needed, alien females only, shelter and food provided. Her heart thumped hard in her chest. She looked down at herself, thin arms, torn clothes, shaking legs. It didn't matter. All she thought of was Miri's face, pale and weak, whispering that she was hungry. From behind her, a human voice called out, "Hey, you there!" Lyra froze. One of the soldiers had noticed her. She slowly turned around, raising her hands. "What are you doing out here past curfew?" the soldier asked, stepping closer. His face was half hidden behind a mask, but his tone was not cruel, just tired. I saw the sign," Lyra said carefully. "I need work." The soldier studied her for a moment. He then glanced at the other guard. "Another one," he muttered. "Fine, go to the compound by dawn. Ask for Commander Vale, don't try anything stupid." He tossed something at her, a small piece of bread wrapped in plastic. Lyra caught it and clutched it tightly, almost not believing it was real. "Thank you," she whispered. "Get lost before I change my mind," the soldier grumbled. She ran back through the rain, the bread pressed against her chest as if it were treasure. When she reached the hut, Miri was still awake, waiting in the darkness. Her big glowing eyes widened when she saw the bread. "Food," Miri gasped. Lyra knelt beside her and tore the bread in half. "Eat slowly," she said, smiling through her tears. "Tomorrow I'll get more." Miri took a bite and made a soft sound of relief. For the first time in days, her lips curved into a smile. Lyra watched her sister eat. The smell of the bread made her stomach twist painfully, but she didn't take a single bite. She just sat there watching, her hand trembling on Miri's back. When the little girl finally fell asleep, Lyra stared at the roof where the rain kept falling through tiny cracks. Her mind was heavy with fear and shame. She whispered to the night, "I'll do anything to keep her alive, even if it means losing myself." Outside, Thunder rolled over the broken city, and far away, the lights of the human base glowed like cold stars. Lyra didn't know what awaited her there. She only knew that tomorrow, she would walk into that place and her life would never be the same again. Morning came slowly, with a weak light slipping through the gray clouds. The rain had stopped, but the street still smelled of wet metal and dust. Lyra stood at the edge of the human compound, her feet bare, her hands shaking. The bread from last night was gone and Miri was sleeping back in the hut, finally full for the first time in days. Lyra had kissed her forehead before leaving and whispered, "I'll be back soon, my little one." The compound gate was tall, covered in warning signs and thick wires. Human soldiers stood guard with rifles that hummed with blue energy. Lyra took a deep breath and stepped closer. One soldier raised his hand. "Stop there. Identification?" "I came for work," she said softly. Her voice was steady, but her heart pounded so hard she could hear it in her ears. The soldier looked her over, then spoke into his wrist device. Another alien female requesting entry, sending her to the commander. The gate opened with a deep mechanical hiss. Inside, everything looked strange and clean. Metal floors, sharp lights, and the smell of oil and disinfectant. Human workers moved fast, carrying boxes and typing on glowing screens. Lyra felt small among them, her bare feet leaving wet prints behind her. A woman in a white coat led her through a corridor. "Keep your head down and answer when spoken to," the woman said coldly. "Commander Vale will decide if you're worth keeping." They entered a large room filled with light. Behind a steel desk stood Commander Ethan Vale, a tall human man with gray at his temples and eyes like dark steel. He looked up from his tablet and studied her in silence. "You came for food?" he finally asked. His voice was deep but calm. Lyra nodded. "Yes, sir. My sister is hungry. I'll do any work you need." He didn't speak for a moment. Then he said, "We have kitchen cleaning, cargo lifting, and maintenance. Pay is in ration packs. Shelter provided if you stay the night." The word "stay the night" made her body stiffen. She had heard stories, terrible stories about alien girls taken in by humans who wanted more than labor. She lowered her head, her hands curling tightly. "I only need food," she said quickly. "I can go home afterward." Ethan leaned back, studying her expression. "You think I'm asking for something else?" he asked quietly. Lyra didn't answer. Silence filled the room. After a moment, he sighed. "You'll work in the kitchen. 1 ration pack for half a day. If you want to leave after that, you can." Lyra's eyes lifted in surprise. "Truly?" "Yes," he said, turning back to his desk. "But don't steal and don't wander. Humans here don't like aliens much." "I understand," she whispered. A guard led her to the kitchens where steam and noise filled the air. Metal pots boiled with strange human food, thick soups, bread, and something that smelled like roasted meat. Her stomach turned with hunger, but she forced herself to focus. Hours passed. She washed dishes until her hands turned red and raw. She carried crates heavier than her arms could handle, but she didn't stop, not once. When she stumbled, another worker, a young human named Lance, caught her elbow. "Careful, alien," he muttered. "You fall and break something, they'll throw you out." "I won't fall," she said softly, pulling away. By evening, her body ached all over. When the work horn sounded, the kitchen emptied. She stood alone, dripping with sweat, when the guard returned with a brown bag. "Ration for the day," he said. "You can stay here or go. It's curfew in 10 minutes. She opened the bag and saw real food, sealed bread, a can of soup, a piece of dried fruit, enough to feed Miri for 2 days. Her eyes filled with tears. "Thank you," she whispered. The guard shrugged. "Don't thank me. The commander signed your ration personally." Not sure why, Lyra blinked. "He did?" "He doesn't usually do that for aliens," the guard said, walking away. Lyra looked down at the bag, her heart confused. Why would a human commander care about her or her sister? Was this pity or something else? As she stepped toward the gate, she saw Commander Vale standing by the balcony above. The rain light glowed behind him, outlining his shape. Their eyes met for a brief second. He didn't speak, but his look wasn't cruel. It was distant, thoughtful. Lyra bowed her head and ran out into the streets. The night air was cold again and the ground was slick from the rain. She held the food tight against her chest. When she reached the hut, Miri was awake, rubbing her eyes. "Lyra, you came back." Lyra smiled through exhaustion. "And I brought more," she said, showing her the bag. Mary gasped with joy. "We can eat for days." Lyra hugged her tight. "Yes, for days," she whispered. But her mind was heavy. The image of Commander Vale stayed with her, and his strange, calm voice echoed inside her head. Outside, thunder rolled again over the empty city, but for now their little home was filled with the sound of Mary's laughter. Lyra didn't know that this was only the beginning, that her small act of sacrifice had already caught the attention of the very man who would soon change both their lives forever. The morning light fell weakly through the holes in the roof. Lyra sat beside Mary, watching her sister eat carefully from a tin bowl. The steam from the reheated soup rose into the cold air, carrying the scent of warmth and life, something their home hadn't felt in months. Mary's small blue fingers clutched a piece of bread like it was treasure. She looked up at Lyra and smiled. "You really did it, Lyra. You're like Mama." Those words hit Lyra harder than she expected. Her eyes burned, but she smiled anyway. "Eat, little one. Don't talk with food in your mouth." Outside, the city was silent. The human patrols hadn't come this far today. The sisters were safe, at least for now. But Lyra's body ached from yesterday's work. Her arms still trembled when she tried to lift the pot, and her palms were raw from scrubbing human metal plates until her skin peeled. Still, she would do it again, every day if she had to. After Mary finished, she lay down to nap, her stomach full and her breathing soft. Lyra brushed the little strands of silver hair from her forehead and whispered, "I'll always protect you." Then, as she turned toward the door, she froze. Outside, something beeped softly. A small drone hovered above their broken fence. It wasn't a patrol drone. It was smaller, silver, and had a glowing blue core that blinked gently. Lyra ducked behind the wall, her heart racing. But instead of giving a warning or alarm, the drone dropped a small package near the door and flew away silently. Lyra waited a few moments before crawling forward. The package was wrapped in a sealed foil sheet, stamped with the mark of the human military. She opened it carefully. Inside were more food packets, ration bread, water tablets, even a medical strip for treating wounds. Her breath caught. Who would send this? She hadn't told anyone where she lived. A soft metallic voice played from the foil tag. "Eat well, little one." From the base, she recognized the voice instantly. Commander Ethan Vale. Her heart pounded faster. Why would a human officer care about them? Was this pity, a trap, or something else she couldn't understand? Lyra looked at Mary sleeping peacefully and decided not to question it. For now, the food mattered more than the reason behind it. That evening, when Mary woke, Lyra warmed the new rations and shared another meal. As they ate, Mary asked softly, "Are humans bad, Lyra?" "Mama said they took everything." Lyra paused. She didn't want to lie, but she didn't want to fill her sister's heart with hate either. "Some are bad," she said slowly. "But not all." Mary tilted her head. "Like the one who helped you?" Lyra's eyes flickered. "Maybe, but we must be careful. Never trust them fully." Outside, far away in the human compound, Commander Ethan stood on his balcony, watching the night through his visor. His aide approached. "Sir, about the unauthorized drone activity. We detected one near the alien sector." "I know," Ethan said calmly. The aide hesitated. "Sir, regulations forbid direct aid to alien civilians." "If Command finds out, I'll handle it," Ethan cut in. His voice was quiet but sharp. "Just erase the record. No one needs to know." He looked toward the horizon where the alien slums glimmered with scattered lights. Something about that girl, Lyra, stuck in his mind. Her eyes hadn't been full of hate like most others. They carried something else. Hope mixed with pride. He whispered to himself, "No one should starve under our flag. Not even them." The next few days passed quietly. Every morning, Lyra found another small package near their fence. Sometimes it was food, sometimes medicine, once even a small lamp that ran on solar charge. Mary began to laugh again, her cheeks less hollow. One morning, Mary ran outside chasing a small paper glider made from an old ration wrapper. "Look, Lyra," she giggled. "It flies." Lyra laughed softly for the first time in months. That sound alone made her heart lighter. But she also knew things couldn't stay peaceful forever. Humans did nothing without reason. She wondered if the commander was being kind, or if kindness was just another form of control. That night as Mary slept, Lyra wrote something on a torn piece of cardboard with a burnt stick. "Whoever you are, Thank you. But we don't want to owe anything. Please stop. She left the note outside under a rock where the drone usually dropped supplies. The next morning, she found the note gone. In its place was another package, this one containing a single ration bar and a small folded piece of paper. Her hands trembled as she unfolded it. The handwriting was human, neat and sharp. No debt, just mercy. Feed the little one. Evie Lyra sat there for a long time, staring at the message. For the first time, she felt something strange toward a human. Not fear, not hatred, but confusion. And a faint warmth she didn't want to admit. She looked toward the human base in the distance and whispered, "You shouldn't care about us. But thank you." Inside, Miri slept soundly again, her belly full. The city outside still burned with tension. But in their tiny hut under the rusted roof, a fragile connection had begun. Between a desperate alien girl and the human commander who broke every rule to keep her alive. Neither of them knew that their choices were already setting the stage for something far greater than survival, a other promise that would change both their worlds. The city had grown quieter than usual. Even the wind seemed afraid to move. Overhead, gray clouds pressed down on the broken skyline, and the air buzzed faintly with the sound of human patrol drones. Something had changed in the streets, something heavy and tense. Lyra felt it the moment she stepped outside the hut. For the last week, no food package had come. No drone had appeared, no note. The fence outside looked bare, lonely and strange without the soft blue blink she had come to expect every morning. Miri was sitting by the door, her little hands holding the last ration bar. "Should we save this?" she asked quietly. Lyra nodded. "Yes, just in case." Her eyes moved toward the horizon where the human base stood, dark against the morning light. Something in her chest told her that the silence meant trouble. She waited until Miri fell asleep that night before leaving. The rain had started again, thin, silver lines falling over the ruins. Lyra wrapped herself in a ragged cloak and slipped through the alleyways toward the compound. By now, she knew how to move unseen. She had learned which roads were watched and which corners were blind to the drones. Hunger had taught her how to survive. But this time, she wasn't searching for food. She wanted answers. The human base looked different. Guard towers were brighter, and more soldiers patrolled the walls. Through the wire fence, she could see trucks loaded with crates marked medical aid. Yet, instead of being sent to the alien slums, the trucks turned toward the military quarter. She crouched behind a pile of metal debris, watching. Her heart sank. The humans were taking everything back. Whatever kindness Commander Ethan Vale had shown her, it was gone now. Then a sound, footsteps. She turned quickly and froze. Someone was behind her, Lyra. The voice was low, roughened by exhaustion. She turned and saw Commander Vale himself standing in the shadow of a broken wall. His uniform was torn and one of his arms was bandaged. Blood had soaked through the fabric. "What happened to you?" she whispered. He looked surprised to see her. "You shouldn't be here. It's dangerous." "Your drone stopped coming," she said, her voice trembling. "No food, no messages. My sister is starving again." Ethan's jaw tightened. He leaned against the wall, his face pale. "They found out," he said softly. "My superiors discovered I was sending aid to alien civilians. They called it treason." Lyra's breath caught. "Treason?" He nodded slowly. "They shut down my unit. Half my men were reassigned. They think helping your kind makes us weak." Lyra looked at him, her throat tightening. "Why did you help us then?" "You didn't have to." For a moment he didn't answer. The rain fell between them, quiet and steady. Then he said, "Because when I saw your sister's face on the surveillance feed, I couldn't stand by. You remind me of my daughter." Lyra blinked. "You have a daughter?" "I did," he said, his voice breaking slightly. "She died during the first attacks. I couldn't save her. Maybe helping you was my way of trying again." The silence between them grew heavy with grief and understanding. Before she could respond, a sudden flash of light lit up the sky, followed by the sharp whine of drones. Ethan grabbed her wrist. "They're tracking me. We have to move." Lyra followed as he led her through narrow alleys. They ran until they reached her hut, both breathless. When they stepped inside, Miri sat up in fear. "Lyra? Who's that?" Lyra knelt beside her. "It's okay. He's the one who sent the food." Ethan's eyes softened as he looked at the child. Miri tilted her head, her small voice trembling. You're human. But you helped us, he nodded. Not all humans are cruel, little one. Miri smiled shyly. Then you're a good one. Ethan smiled faintly. I'm trying to be. But before they could say more, a sharp sound echoed outside, a human command in the distance. Search this block. The deserter is hiding nearby. Lyra's blood ran cold. She looked at Ethan. They're after you. He nodded grimly. And now they'll find you too. She grabbed his arm. Then hide. Here. She pulled him behind a wall panel that had once been part of their water storage. It was small and narrow, but enough to cover him. Don't make a sound, she whispered. Moments later, boots stomped outside. Flashlights cut through the cracks in the walls. A soldier shouted, "This sector's empty. Move to the next." When they were gone, Lyra finally let out the breath she had been holding. Ethan stepped out, his face shadowed. You risked yourself for me, he said quietly. You risked yourself for us first, she answered. Their eyes met for a long, silent moment. Outside, the patrols faded into the distance. Inside, under the dim glow of a broken lamp, an unspoken truth formed between them. They were no longer enemies, no longer strangers bound by pity or survival. They were two souls caught in the same war, each carrying guilt, each protecting someone they loved. Ethan turned toward the door. They'll come again. I can't stay here, but I'll come back. I promise. Lyra reached out, stopping him for a moment. Don't, it's too dangerous. He smiled faintly, the kind of smile that carried both pain and kindness. Some promises are worth the danger. As he disappeared into the night rain, Lyra closed the door and leaned her head against it. Her heart was heavy, but not just with fear. For the first time, it carried something else. Hope. The next morning, the city woke to the sound of thunder that wasn't from the sky. Explosions echoed across the old industrial quarter as human troops stormed through the ruins. The air was thick with dust, smoke, and shouted orders. Miri clung to Lyra's arm as their little hut trembled from the blasts. Lyra, what's happening? She cried. Lyra pressed a finger to her lips. Stay quiet, she whispered, peeking through a crack in the wall. Dozens of soldiers were marching down the street, armor shining, faces hidden behind masks. At their center was a military truck carrying giant screens, all flashing the same image, Commander Ethan Vale's face. Wanted, traitor to human authority, reward for information, harboring will be punished. Lyra's heart dropped. She knew this was coming, but seeing it made it real. The man who had fed her sister, the one who had bled in her hut, was now the most wanted human in the sector. Miri tugged at her sleeve. They'll hurt him, won't they? Lyra nodded slowly, her eyes wet. Yes, if they find him. They didn't have long to think. Heavy boots stopped outside. Lyra pulled Miri into the crawl space under the floor, covering the opening with old metal scraps. Moments later, the door burst open. Search everything, a soldier barked. The deserter's been seen in this zone. Two soldiers entered, sweeping flashlights across the small space. One kicked over the broken lantern. Another flipped the thin mattress. The floor creaked above Lyra's head as Miri pressed her face into her sister's arm to muffle her sobs. After a tense minute, one soldier grunted. No one here. Let's move. The boots faded. Silence returned. Lyra waited a few more moments before lifting the metal sheet and pulling Miri close. We can't stay here anymore, she whispered. They'll come back. Just as she said it, the back door creaked open. Lyra spun around, ready to grab a pipe, but then stopped. It was Ethan. He looked worse than before. Dirty. Fleeting again, his uniform torn almost to rags. They've put my name on every screen, he said quietly, closing the door behind him. I'm sorry, Lyra, I didn't mean for it to reach you. You're hurt, she said, stepping forward. It's nothing, he lied. His left arm hung limply, a burn mark visible beneath the sleeve. You shouldn't be here, she hissed. They're searching every block. I know, he said. But I had to make sure you were safe. Before she could answer, the distant hum of engines grew louder again, this time closer. Drones swept over the rooftops, their red lights blinking like angry eyes. They're tracking the heat signatures, Ethan said quickly. We need to move. He lifted Miri gently, ignoring the pain in his arm. There's an old water tunnel beneath the power plant 2 blocks from here. It's sealed off, but I can open it. Lyra grabbed a small bag. 1 blanket, 1 ration bar, nothing else. Then let's go. They moved fast, slipping through back alleys. The rain had turned to mist, blurring the world into gray shadows. Once, a drone passed so close that Lyra could see her reflection in its lens. She froze until it moved on. When they reached the plant, the air was colder. The ground shook with distant machinery still running under the surface. Ethan led them to a rusted hatch hidden beneath an old tank. He entered a code on a small device. The lock beeped, then clicked open. Inside, he said. Now. They climbed down into darkness. The tunnel smelled of oil and damp metal. Old pipes ran along the ceiling, and the ground was slick. Mary shivered in Ethan's arms. For a while, no one spoke. Only the dripping water broke the silence. Finally, Lyra said softly, "Why are you still helping us? They'll kill you for this." Ethan stopped walking and looked at her through the dim light of his wrist lamp. "Because I can't keep pretending we're enemies," he said. "Not after what I've seen. You're people. You're just trying to survive." Like us, Lyra didn't know what to say. She wanted to be angry, to blame him for everything the humans had done, but instead all she felt was exhaustion. "You'll lose everything," she said. He smiled faintly. "Maybe it's time humans lose something too." Before she could respond, the tunnel lights flickered red. A warning siren echoed faintly from above. "They've traced the hatch," Ethan muttered. "We have to move faster." He led them deeper, through narrow corridors filled with dripping pipes. The noise of boots and distant shouting began to echo from behind them. At a junction, Ethan turned sharply. "Lyra, take Mary, go left. There's a maintenance ladder that leads to the old city drains. Follow the river tunnels east. You'll reach the outer fields." Lyra grabbed his hand. "What about you?" "I'll stop them here," he said simply. "Buy you time." "No," she whispered fiercely. "You'll die!" Ethan's eyes were calm, steady. "If I don't, you both will." For a moment, Lyra wanted to argue, but the look on his face stopped her. She knew that look, the same one her father had before he was taken away. The look of someone who had already made peace with his fate. She swallowed hard, tears stinging her eyes. "Then promise me something. Anything. Don't die for nothing," she said. "Live if you can." He nodded once, then handed her a small key card. "If I don't make it, this will open the gate at the east field. Use it. Get her to safety." Their hands touched briefly before he turned away, drawing his weapon. The sound of soldiers grew louder. Lyra held Miri close and whispered, "Don't look back." Together, they ran into the darkness. Behind them, gunfire erupted, followed by the echo of explosions. Lyra didn't stop. She couldn't. Not while Miri's little arms were around her neck, and the sound of Ethan's defiance filled the tunnels behind them like a final heartbeat. The price of kindness had been paid in blood, but somewhere deep inside her, Lyra felt a spark of something fierce, a will to survive, and maybe, just maybe, to fight back. The tunnels shook like a living beast, groaning under the weight of war above. Lyra could barely see through the smoke that crept into the passage, burning her throat with every breath. Miri's small arms clung tightly around her neck, her body trembling with every distant explosion. "Hold on, Miri," Lyra whispered, her voice rough and low. "We're almost out." But even she didn't believe those words. The air was hot, thick with ash. Somewhere behind them she could still hear faint bursts of gunfire. Ethan's gunfire. Each shot echoed like a heartbeat in the dark. Each one might have been his last. The tunnel sloped upward now, the metal under her bare feet warm and slick. She stumbled, gripping the wall for balance. Red emergency lights blinked along the ceiling, dying one by one as the power failed. Then came the sound she feared most. A heavy metallic crash followed by human voices. They went down the east line. A soldier shouted, "Block the exits!" The traitors protecting aliens. Lyra's heart pounded in her chest. She turned a corner sharply, breathing fast. "Don't make a sound," she whispered to Miri. The little girl nodded, pressing her face into Lyra's shoulder to hide her sobs. They came to a junction where the tunnel split into two. One path glowed faintly red, leading toward the firelight. The other was darker, flooded ankle-deep with cold, oily water. Lyra hesitated for only a second before stepping into the water. The cold bit into her legs, but it masked their footsteps. Behind them, another explosion shook the ground. A rush of hot air blew through the tunnel, followed by a deep rumble. Ethan must have detonated something to slow them down. The thought tore through her heart like a knife. "Please be alive," she whispered under her breath, her voice trembling. They followed the tunnel for what felt like hours. The smoke began to fade, replaced by the sound of rushing water ahead. When they reached the end, a rusted grate blocked the exit. Beyond it, moonlight shimmered faintly on the surface of a canal. Lyra pushed the grate, but it didn't budge. She pushed again, harder this time, but it held firm. Panic began to rise. No, not now, she whispered. Miri looked up at her with wide, frightened eyes. Can't we go back? Lyra shook her head. No, we only move forward. She set Miri down and pulled out the keycard Ethan had given her. It wasn't meant for this door, but maybe, just maybe it held some access. She pressed it against the small control pad beside the grate. For a second, nothing happened. Then the pad flickered, sparked, and the lock released with a loud click. The grate swung open and cold night air rushed in. Lyra grabbed Miri's hand. Run. They climbed out into the open world. The sky was painted orange and black, and the city behind them burning like a dying star. Flames licked the rooftops. Drones streaked across the air like shooting comets, firing into the ruins below. They ran along the canal until they reached the edge of the old farming fields, vast stretches of soil that had long since turned to dust. There, a single old transport pod sat half buried in the mud, its hull marked with faded military symbols. Lyra yanked open the hatch. Inside, it smelled of rust and engine oil, but it still looked intact. She pressed the start button, nothing. The power was dead. Her hands shook as she tried again, slamming the panel in frustration. Come on, she whispered desperately. Please. Then from the floor of the pod, Miri found a small cylindrical cell, an old power core. Lyra, this thing, does it work? Lyra took it, examined it quickly, then jammed it into the slot. The pod hummed weakly. The control screen flickered on, its green light barely stable. Yes, she breathed. It's enough. She strapped Miri into the co-pilot seat and grabbed the steering lever. The pod lifted off slowly, shuddering as smoke and ash whirled around them. Through the cracked viewport, the city burned below, an ocean of red flame and black sky. Lyra's heart broke as she saw the sector where their hut once stood, now just a shadow in the fire. Lyra, Miri said softly, clutching her arm. Will he find us? Lyra looked down at the keycard in her hand. Ethan's initials, EV, were etched faintly into the metal. I don't know, she whispered. But he said he'd try. The pod's alarm beeped, warning of heat signatures behind them. A drone squad was closing in. Lyra turned the controls sharply, the pod jolting sideways through the smoke. Lasers sliced through the air, grazing the hull. She gritted her teeth and pushed the pod higher toward the clouds. The engine screamed. Hold on, Miri. A bright bolt hit one of the side wings, spinning the pod out of control. They spiraled through the sky as debris fell all around them. Lyra fought the controls, her arms trembling. Then, through the static on the comm system, a faint human voice broke through. Distorted but familiar. Lyra. Miri. Follow the signal east. I've cleared a path. Ethan, tears filled her eyes. He's alive, she whispered. She turned the pod toward the faint beacon flashing in the east. The last of the drones turned away, diverted by explosion somewhere behind them. His doing again. The sky grew lighter as they flew farther from the burning city. For the first time in weeks, dawn began to rise, soft pink and gold cutting through the gray clouds. Miri leaned against Lyra's shoulder, half asleep. Is it over? She murmured. Lyra looked at the horizon where the flames faded into light. No, she said quietly. It's just beginning. The pod drifted into the distance, leaving behind a world on fire. A world that one human and two alien sisters had defied together. The first sunrise Lyra had seen in years rose over a quiet valley of red soil and silver mist. The old transport pod rested at the edge of a grassy ridge, its hull cracked but still standing. The air here was clean. No smoke, no drones, no orders shouted through metal speakers. Only the sound of wind brushing through alien flowers that glowed faintly blue beneath the morning light. Lyra stood outside the pod, her eyes half closed, letting the warmth touch her face. For the first time, it didn't smell like fire. It smelled like life. Behind her, Miri's small voice broke the silence. Lyra, are we safe now? Lyra turned and smiled softly. I think so, little one. Miri stepped barefoot into the damp soil, laughing as she spun slowly under the rising sun. The light made her pale blue skin shimmer like crystal water. She looked stronger now. Her eyes weren't hollow anymore. The child who once cried under a rusted roof was gone. This one was alive, full of hope. They had landed on the edge of an abandoned human colony, old domes cracked by storms, half buried in vines. The nameplate on one building still read Haven 9. Whoever had lived here was long gone, but the power cells still worked. They had light, water, and shelter. For Lyra and Miri it was enough. Inside the main dome, Lyra placed the last of their ration packs on a metal table. "Eat, Miri," she said. "We'll find more food soon." Miri nodded, chewing quietly. Then she looked up. "Will he come here?" Lyra's hands froze over the table. She didn't answer at first. "Commander Vale," Miri said again softly. "He told us to follow the signal." "You heard his voice, didn't you?" Lyra nodded slowly. "Yes, I heard him." After a long pause, she added in a whisper, "But I don't know if he survived." That night, after Miri fell asleep under a blanket of old uniforms, Lyra sat outside the dome, staring up at the stars. The sky was endless here, free from the city's smoke. A faint red glow still marked the direction of the world they had fled, but it was far away now, fading into memory. In her hands, she held the small keycard Ethan had given her. Its surface was scratched, worn by fire and blood. But when she pressed the side, it flickered, just once with a faint blue light. She turned it over, reading the initials again. "EV, are you still out there?" she whispered. "Or did the fire take you too?" The wind didn't answer, but it carried the soft hum of something faint, something mechanical. Lyra stood quickly, scanning the sky. Far above, between the stars, a small light moved slowly, blinking in a rhythm too even to be random. Her breath caught. That wasn't a star. It was a signal beacon, the same pattern Ethan's drones used. Lyra's heart began to race. She rushed inside and woke Miri. "Get up, Miri. Look." Miri blinked sleepily and stumbled outside. When she saw the light, her eyes widened. "It's him?" "Maybe," Lyra whispered. "He said he'd come back." They stood together under the open sky, watching the small light move across the horizon. It blinked 3 times, paused, then blinked once more. A message pattern. Lyra had seen it before. She remembered what it meant. Safe, stay hidden, hope. Tears filled her eyes. She laughed softly, half crying, half smiling. "He's alive," she said. "He kept his promise." Miri hugged her waist tightly, her small voice muffled. "Then he's watching over us." "Yes," Lyra whispered, looking up again. "He's watching." Days passed into weeks. The colony slowly came to life again. Lyra repaired the water filters, grew small crops in the soil, and taught Miri how to make light panels work. Together they rebuilt piece by piece. Every night they would look to the sky. Sometimes the beacon returned. Sometimes it didn't. But Lyra no longer felt alone. Somewhere out there, a human was still fighting for the same dream. To see a world where aliens and humans didn't have to fear each other. One evening, as the sun set behind the hills, Miri brought Lyra a small, broken metal plate she had found near the ridge. Lyra cleaned it gently, and her breath stopped when she saw the engraving. "Vale Unit 04, command tag." She traced the letters with trembling fingers. He had been here. Maybe long ago, maybe not long enough. But his mark remained, proof that his path had once crossed this place. She set the tag beside the keycard on the table, whispering, "You did find us after all." Outside, the wind blew softly through the glowing flowers. The stars began to appear one by one, and for the first time since the war, the world didn't feel like a battlefield. It felt like a beginning. Lyra sat by the door, holding Miri close as they watched the sky together. The beacon flashed again, faint and distant, before vanishing behind a cloud. Miri looked up. "Do you think we'll ever see him again?" Lyra smiled through her tears. "Maybe not, but I think he sees us." The little girl yawned and rested her head on her sister's shoulder. "Then we're not alone anymore." "No," Lyra said softly, staring into the dawn's pale light rising again over the hills. "We're not." And as the sun climbed higher, spreading warmth across the valley, the scars of their past began to fade, replaced by something stronger, something unbreakable. Hope. The kind of hope that even fire could not destroy.